Hi everyone, Mr. Ross here, showing you a video on how to make a linear graph for your physics assessment. So here I've got on this sheet my data from an experiment. It doesn't matter where I lay it out. Excel doesn't really care for the graphs where the data comes from, but you can see I've got my independent variable down here, and then my dependent variable is here with all the three trials. The first thing we need to do is make sure that all the stuff that's in these cells is visible. So I'm going to select everything on the page by clicking in that top corner. On this home ribbon up here, I'm going to click on this icon. Yours might be better displayed. It might say wrap text, but click it once, and that means that from now on, every time I type in a cell, it will expand to show everything that's currently typed in there. Excel can do all the means for us, so I'm going to click in the last column, type in my column headings again, so I know what it is I'm generating. And then I'm going to put a formula in here. So I'm clicking in the top cell, equals, opens up a formula operation, open a bracket. I'm going to go this plus this plus this, close bracket, hash sign for divide, and then 3, and press enter. And you'll see it gives me the average. Now if I click that box and drag the little box on the corner down, it'll repeat the operation row by row. So that's how we get our means at this point. Let's just check out all our significant figures before we go on. I know that my current measurements here actually are accurate to 1 decimal place, but you can see that Excel won't put decimals in automatically. So I'm going to highlight those cells, and I'm going to click up here where it says number. I'm on the Home tab. I'm going to click number and go to number. Now I get to tell it how many decimal places to go to. I just want the first decimal place, clicking OK, and now you can see that that looks like we want in physics. It tells me my device can measure to the first decimal place. The heat measurements are all fine. The device can only measure to the first ones column. There are no decimals. But this stuff here is a bit crazy. We don't need to have all of these numbers here. So I'm just going to round that to the same decimal place as these initial measurements. So I'm going to drag that down, highlight, click on number again, go to number, and I want 0 decimal places this time, OK, and it will round for me. So there are my mean heat energy values, all nicely rounded, ready to be graphed. Here's where I start to insert my graph. So I can click anywhere I like in the cell, in the sheet. I'm going to go to the Insert Ribbon tab, and on here you might not see all these images. You might just see a thing that says Insert Chart, but I want to go here for this scatter plot. So I'm going to click that, and I'm then going to choose a basic scatter here. Now at this point my graph is completely empty. That is actually a graph. So I need to tell it how to find the data. So I'm going to tap inside this area with my mouse. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to choose Select Data. Just close that little window down there. In the data, I'm going to tell it what to do. So I'm going to add some columns. Click on Add. Now look, it's here, it says Series X and Series Y. I'm going to choose Series X. That's my lower independent axis. So click on the little grid. And now the thing I set up was the current. I'm going to highlight the current and hit the Enter button. Then I'm going to do my Y values. Now it's really important that this is totally empty before you start. So I've just deleted that little bit that was there. Click on there. This is my Y axis. Press Enter. OK. OK. And I've got a graph. Right, now I need to show the graph that I have to plot a line. This first graph is a curve. So I'm going to choose any of the single points here, right click on it, and I can see Add Trend Line pops up. Now click on that. Now down the side I've got options. The Excel can't quite detect what kind of graph I'm looking for, so by default it's trying to make it straight, but we know it isn't. On this particular graph, the nearest could be power, could be exponential. It doesn't really matter, we're just trying to find the best curve that we think fits. So I'm going to go with power for this graph. I'm going to scroll down here, close that off, and now my graph has a line. Now here I can spot an error on my graph. There are two results for this particular current of 2 amps. So if I come back to my table, I can see I've got 2 here twice. I can fix this up really easily and the graph will update live. I'm going to click in that cell. That should be 2.5. I press enter and the table's nice and complete and the graph has adjusted itself. Now it doesn't matter where you put the graph in the spreadsheet. You can sort it out for printing later. So I'm going to start focusing on my next linear graph now, which I need to get my relationship. So I'm just going to take this graph and sort of move it aside for a moment. At this point, I now need to set up my next table of data for the next graph to draw itself from. So I can tell from that graph that it's a square relationship. I need to take all my currents and square them. So I've just clicked here in this little cell. Now I've typed the word current. Excel won't do superscript, so I can't put a 2 above the current. I can use the little hat symbol and put 2, which tells me it's the power of 2, or I could just write squared in the box here instead. So I'm going to keep it simple so it looks tidy and put current squared. I'm going to put I squared, and I need to put the unit squared as well. Now I'm going to take all of these current values and square them. So what I'm going to do is go equals, I'm going to click, open bracket, click on the cell, close the cell bracket, to the power of 2 and press enter. And that has times that cell here by itself, which is what squaring does. Click back in the cell, grab the little corner, drag it down, and now all those values from current have been squared, copied over here. Now if it was by hand, I would probably need to redraw all the mean heats over here so I have a nice neat table, but the graph doesn't care where you get the data from in the sheet. So I'm going to leave this like it is and get ready to insert my final linear graph. Okay, I'm going to click somewhere in a cell. I'm going to go to my insert tab. I'm going to click on the scatter graph and choose the first option. Just drag that over somewhere I can see it. I'm going to right click. We're going to right click here and go insert, select data, sorry, there it is. I'm going to go add. Now you can see I've got my X and Y axes again. On the X axis, I still want current, but now it's going to be the new values for current squared. Highlight them all, press enter. My Y axis, remember I delete this so it's empty. I'm going to click on this box, highlight the original mean heat values and press enter. OK. OK, and you can see my graph is beginning to form here, but I need to draw in the line of best fit. So choose any point, right click the point and go add trend line. Now it's definitely linear. I'm just going to leave it as linear and I'm going to close down this box here, and that's so far I've got my linear graph done. You can see that my line does not cut the y-axis. So to make that work, I'm going to add some more information. I'm going to go format trend line by right clicking on a point. I'm going to have to forecast backwards past the actual data that we gathered. So back over here on current, I'm going up in half amp increments. I might just make that one whole increment backwards and see how that looks. So I'm choosing 1. I'm going to hit enter. And now you can see it's extrapolating past the points we measured towards 0. And you can't see it very clearly because the points are so compressed, but there is a y-intercept in there somewhere. While I'm here, I can do the y equals mx+c relationship. Just click display equation on chart, close that off, and you can see here it's given me y equals mx+c. Now this is not good for our assessment. We need to fix this up, but Excel won't do it. We need to write this on our paper by hand. I need to change y to be the symbol on the y-axis. In that case, it was a capital H for heat. My gradient's 615.33, that's great. X, though, is the symbol on the x-axis. And over here, you can see I've fixed up my current, by the way, my unit. The symbol for x on this relationship should be current squared. I'm going to leave this y-intercept of 1.1977 in, and that's all good to go.